His death turned the revolutionist into an icon. After 4 strokes in his Gorky dacha, the man who had led Russia into red dictatorship had died. He had been suffering from severe arteriosclerosis. He suffered from spasms every day, and it got worse and worse. He did not react to anything. The doctor's desperate efforts could not save him from his deadly illness. It was the 21st of January, 1924. The information spread through the village like wildfire. Lenin was dead. Anyone who was able to ran there. A willful revolutionist had died, a tyrant who had caused the death of millions. Many of the mourners still believed in the myth of the warm-hearted father of the Soviets. I quarreled with my older brother because we only had 1 pair of winter boots. The whole village was out and standing there to show their respects. Lenin was a good person. The mourning was organized. The organizer was Stalin. He used the death cult for his own goals.
The death of Lenin meant the rise of the dictator Stalin. Stalin could strengthen his leading position only after the death of Lenin, and to become that as we know him, the tyrant of the 30s.
Red Square. From this beginning came the later cult of personality that would mark so many later dictatorships. They built him a mausoleum. Lenin was laid to rest as the god of the Red Revolution, the designer of the new religion, Stalin. He anointed himself as the sole legitimate successor.
The end justifies the means. This applied to Lenin and Stalin as well. Stalin continued what Lenin started.
November 1917. The Bolshevik coup was the work of Lenin. Alone, he pestered the muddled party all the way to armed uprising. However, later propaganda showed Stalin as a leader of the putsch. He was always at Lenin's side in pictures from the revolution.
In fact, what happened that night was totally different. Stalin was visiting a friend. He drank tea and told Georgian jokes. This was his real role in the Bolshevik Revolution.
Stalin maneuvers. The editor of Pravda stressed one opinion one day, then later a different opinion on political transformation. This bothered Lenin, but one thing was useful for him. Stalin was a crude man.
Они были все люди прямодушные. Как это перевести, думаете вы?
Everyone was very honest, except Stalin. He was without character and unpredictable. He acted like a great governor.
Восточный хитрец, визирь какой-нибудь.
Civil war broke out in the country. The Bolsheviks against the troops of the Tsar, red against white. A war struggled on the back of the country. In order to secure Soviet power, Lenin needed someone to carry out his commands, men like Stalin. He portrayed opponents as enemies of the people. He killed monks, priests, and peasants, while kulaks were driven into either starvation or segregated camps.
Lenin was the father of the Red Terror. Today, we must say this openly. Lenin began these things.
Lenin perpetrated felonies from his desk, but he was a willful executor on the front line too. Stalin, the Georgian, unscrupulous officer of monstrosity.
At last, it was the foundation of a new power that was called the proletarian dictatorship. It needed an iron fist. And Stalin was not a featherweight, like Bukharin or Kamina. They were weaklings, but him, like steel.
The country lay fallow, and people were starving. 5 million Russians died. Did the instigator of suffering know what he was doing? After 2 strokes, Lenin was taken into intensive care. Above him and above the doctors, Stalin stood vigil. He used this situation to his advantage. The Georgian wanted to follow in Lenin's footsteps and thus became the chief secretary of the party.
Это, конечно, средний возраст.
Stalin won the trust of the party. He was highly respected. The old Lenin Guard stayed alone. They didn't play any role. Lenin felt that Stalin wanted to collect all the power for himself. After his 3rd stroke, he could hardly speak.
Lenin had 1 foot in the grave, and Stalin precipitated him there. This was the way to go.
Using his last reserves of strength, Lenin dictated his last will and testament. At a sign from Stalin, he handed over to his deputy and praised his old comrade in arms, Trotsky. Lenin's secretary conveyed the secret contents of the letter to Stalin.
Nadyezhda Aluvia was not just Lenin's secretary, but Stalin's wife also. This way, Stalin had all his demands written up at the party conference.
И Сталин по-своему отредактировал этот документ.
13th Conference. The rewritten will was read out loud. The imitator was celebrated as heir to the throne.
Stalin replaced the focus of power from state institutions to the institutions of the party. He made the Central Committee and the political office the servants of his dictatorship. Right after the death of Lenin, he launched his revenge against the comrades of his predecessor.
Soon, he became the demigod of the Red Tyrant, the personality cult around one of the greatest mass murderers of the century.